Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2022 Hyundai Sonata Limited trim. This is the top trim of the very popular mid-size sedan from Hyundai. They fully redesigned this for the 8th generation, if you can believe that, in 2020, and I have the new 2022. Not too many new updates in this one, but it looks incredible. So Hyundai clearly put in a lot of work to make this car look as good as it does, and for the tech and the ride quality to be as good as it is. I really feel like they knocked it out of the park with this car and all of their redesigns, especially the 2021 Elantra, the 2022 Tucson, right? I feel like their design language and you know, Hyundai and Kia, it's so much better than it used to be, and I really feel like this is so much more interesting than something like the Camry or the Accord, right? I really truly think that there's nothing those vehicles can compete with in terms of you know, how exciting this car is, especially on the outside and the inside. So the base trim of the Sonata starts at just about $24,000, very competitive with, you know, everyone else in the segment. And the limited top trim that I have here is just above $34,000. The cool thing about Hyundai is that there actually isn't that much in terms of like packages and options on it. So the top of this car really ends up being just about $34,000. One of the main standouts of this car is its fuel economy. You've got 27 city miles per gallon and 37 highway miles per gallon with a combined total of about 31. That is really high in this class, and I feel like that makes this a really efficient car for its size. Those numbers are for the turbocharged 1.6 liter engine that is available on some of the higher trims, I think starting with the SEL Plus. You can kind of see the badging on the back shows you that you have that 1.6 liter engine. And that makes 180 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque. Kind of interesting thing is that that's actually lower horsepower figures than the base engine. Well, of course, you've got that turbocharged engine, so it's a bit more aggressive sounding and kind of a more refined engine overall. This is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission that is also standard, and front-wheel drive is actually the only option available across the entire lineup. So if you're looking for an all-wheel drive car, this is not going to be a lot for you. So diving into the exterior here, I mean, this is definitely one of my favorite parts of this car. When it was redesigned back in 2020, I was really impressed with, you know, just overall the design language. It's so much more bold than the previous generation. I mean, really for me, it's the daytime running lights. I love how they go into the chrome accents on the side of the car, right? I think that's just genius design language right there. And I don't know, it just looks so much more luxurious than, you know, a standard economy car like the Hyundai, right? Seeing this at things like National Car Rental, I feel like why would you ever choose something you know, like a Camry when you have the option to take something like this? And the tech is really, really impressive, as I'll talk about later. But otherwise, I mean, the grille, pretty standard. You do have a few different grille choices depending on the trim level here, but the limited one gets this kind of interesting blacked out, you know, I don't really know how to describe this pattern, but I think it looks really interesting. You do have some fake vents on the side, but you do have one real one on the very, very end. Moving on to the side profile here, you've got some really gorgeous 18-inch alloy wheels here. I think they look really, really nice. The design on the limited trim is definitely more unique than some of the other lower trims that look a little more basic. Otherwise, the body lines look really aggressive. The end line, I feel like it's really interesting because the end line doesn't even need to change the body lines that much because you already have some really, really nice ones across the entire car. Going to the exterior here, you have a rear light bar. This looks so unique, and you can really see this from a mile away when you're behind this car in traffic or anything. I do think that the interesting, you know, these like kind of rectangular exhaust tips at the back, and it actually has a rear diffuser, is a really interesting look on this car, and, you know, overall it looks really good. All right, and while we're at the rear of the vehicle, I did want to show you guys what trunk space looks like. You've got 16 cubic feet of space, so not great, but not terrible for this segment. You also got a nice net that comes standard with the car. All right, so stepping inside the interior of the 2022 Hyundai Sonata, you can immediately see that the inside of this cabin is very upscale. It looks really, really nice. I mean, just checking out the door panels, right? You've got ambient lighting right here. You got these nice chrome accents, and I love this leather kind of like armrest on the side. It is a little weird and bulky, and I feel like it gets dirty really easily in this color, but it looks very, very classy. You've got the Bose speaker cap right there. You have two-way memory seats, and I mean, a plethora of screens right here. This looks really fantastic. I love the ambient lighting. You have 64 color ambient lighting in the limited trim, only in the limited trim. So definitely recommend stepping up to that. Kind of just looking around the cabin, right? I love these light gray seats. Everything looks really good. I think the color matching of this car looks fantastic, right? You've got the Portofino gray on the outside. and the light gray on the inside. And this ambient lighting you can change to any color. I kind of have this as a purple right now. But otherwise, you do have a very nice looking 10.25-inch infotainment system right here. I love the look of this. It's very easy to access, very easy to reach from the driver's seat as well. And all the controls are very quick to respond. You've got the map on the side. Not a bad map, but of course Apple CarPlay is still going to be better. You have navigation right here in the star, which you can set to different things. We have it set to Apple CarPlay right now. And then you're kind of going through the other side. Everything is very easy to use and generally quite responsive. I will say the hard part about this is the digital gauge cluster here. So you've got 12.3 inches here. Looks fantastic, right? I really like the, the drive mode animations here. So you can go to sport, kind of this crazy red explosion. You've got eco, pretty cool stuff. I kind of been leaving it in sport, but in general, it looks really fantastic. But I will say this is difficult to configure, not like the Audi. It's confusing which things control which. So I will say there's a bit of a learning curve figuring this stuff out. But otherwise, it is a fairly configurable system and looks pretty good. And above the digital gauge cluster on the Limited trim, you do have a heads-up display. It looks very good. Very configurable. You see how I have the digital speed in green? You can actually configure it to be white, green, or orange, which is pretty cool. One of the cool tech features that I wanted to showcase is the blind spot view monitor. So, you've probably heard of blind spot monitors, but when you signal, you can actually see that the left gauge becomes a digital display of what's, to your left. And with the right signal, you can see on the right-hand side, it also turns into a display of what is on the right side of you. So pretty neat. I have found it a little hard to use actually in practice while you're driving on the freeway, because generally I don't look down. I kind of feel like if there was a way to integrate it into the heads-up display, that'd be really cool. But still kind of a nifty party trick to show people. Moving to the steering wheel, I really like the bolstering on this. It feels very good, very, upscale, and I do like the chrome accents on the bottom. It is kind of an interesting four-spoke design, right? Which I feel like some people might not like. It's not my favorite design, but very similar to the Genesis products that Hyundai is also using. One cool little thing I like is that the selector on the sides here has this really interesting texture on it that looks very upscale, and I really like that. The car keeps telling me that it's going to turn off automatically in 30 minutes. Kind of an interesting feature that you can configure as well. But otherwise, the steering wheel is pretty easy to use. You've got your adaptive cruise control, semi-autonomous driving function on the right-hand side here, so you can choose whether you want it to steer for you, how far you want the follow distance, and all that sort of general stuff. Everything is really easy to use here. These buttons feel really great, and it is very intuitive, so I do like that. You do have some paddle shifters on the back, but I feel like you probably won't be using this unless you step up to the end line. You do have some buttons on the side, kind of as you would expect, pretty much everything you would expect in, something that is decked out like this Limited trim right here. Moving on to the middle, you've got all of your HVAC controls in the middle, and I have to say they did a really good job laying this out and making it intuitive. Again, I feel like this looks way more expensive than the car really is. Again, this is $35,000 for this trim. You've got heated steering wheel right here, and otherwise you have dual zone automatic climate control, which works out really nicely. Moving on to the middle of the center console area, you have an interesting gear select right here. I feel like it actually takes a while to get used to, but you've got drive as a button, neutral as a button, reverse as a button, and also park as a separate button. A little strange, but honestly, it's pretty easy to get used to in a few days. You have a wireless charging pad right there, pretty convenient location, 2 cup holders, pretty standard. You've got parking assist right here, your drive mode selector, surround view camera, which looks excellent, as I can show you right here. And then also you have auto hold and the ability to move your car back and forth using the key fob, which is kind of neat. One thing I wanted to point out here is that I feel like Hyundai did a really great job choosing some really nice looking material on the parts that matter, right? So you have near the cup holders, you have this really interesting design that kind of almost looks like carbon fiber. And you have really great materials right here. This is a nice soft touch plastic there, and these aluminum accents just look really, really nice throughout the cabin, right? And of course the armrest on that side, and just the seats look really, really nice. And it's really interesting because the parts that are actually plastic like this right here, or where your cup holders are and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter as much, right? People don't care about those areas as much. So Hyundai has done a really good job kind of disguising some of the lower end materials in the cabin and showcasing and making it very obvious with the ambient lighting and stuff like that, the higher quality materials in their cabin. Stepping into the back seats, you can also tell that they are similarly appointed. Unfortunately, they actually don't have the ambient lighting next to the chrome accents, which is kind of weird. But otherwise, the seats do look really good, and they are very comfortable and supportive. You have pretty standard stuff right here. Nothing too crazy. You do have a pano sunroof on this trim, which is awesome. As you can see, just kind of pouring outside here. But otherwise, the back seats are pretty nice, and they do have a lot of legroom. You have one charger here. And yeah, just tons of legroom, I feel. You know, in general, like, I'm definitely not concerned about legroom for people in the back here. And it is a really comfortable place to be. The headrests are really supportive, and overall the seats do feel nice, and you still have this nice little bolster for your arms on the side. Right, so driving the 2022 Hyundai Sonata feels pretty good. The cabin is definitely very upscale, and it's pretty quiet. I feel like that's the first thing that impressed me, is cabin noise is really kept to a minimum. It kind of feels almost like the, you know, some of the more luxurious midsize SUVs like the Lexus ES that I drive. Definitely not as quiet as that. I feel like this car is a bit more agile in terms of its handling, and it does give off a little bit of a sporty vibe. Maybe not sporty as something like the Accord, but it definitely is still pretty good in that segment. The ride quality is a bit more on the firm side, and I feel like a lot of people have talked about how the 18-inch alloy wheels are kind of to blame for that. It definitely doesn't absorb the bumps as nicely as some of the other competitors would, but you know, it still feels like an upscale experience. You know, we have all the tech, all the assisting features. I will say the driving experience is pretty numb. It's kind of like the people complain about a lot these days, but like it just doesn't feel like you're doing much. You're kind of just putting your foot on the pedal, and just all of these assisting features kind of make sure you stay in the lane, all that sort of stuff. And you know, if you like that and you want a cushy, smooth, luxurious ride, this is going to be a really good fit. Obviously, if you want something more sporty, you're going to have to go with the N line, which I really want to drive one day because I've heard that's amazing. It has about 290 horsepower, a lot more torque than the current car I'm driving. 0 to 60 in like 5.5 or something like that, which is really exciting. So definitely want to drive that one day. But you know, for now, if you're looking for a more cushy ride, this would be the one to get. The semi-autonomous driving on this car is definitely not as good as, you know, Tesla, things like that. It does work really well on the freeways. I feel like it was really able to trace those curves. But, you know, when you get below like 40 miles per hour, it just doesn't feel as robust as something like the Tesla. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, but I didn't really expect much from that anyways. So I wanted to show you guys kind of what accelerating feels like on this car as soon as I can turn here. So this car is quoted to go 0 to 60 in 7.3. So see if I can give you a little taste of that. You can hear the engine. Really doesn't do much, but it does go 0 to 60 in 7.3. So it's really not bad. You have ample passing power, and the turbocharged engine does feel like it can, you know, take you up to speed pretty easily. So overall, I feel like this car is a very strong competitor in this segment. I feel like way more interesting than the Camry or, you know, the Accord or even the Mazda 6. I feel like Kia's, you know, the K5 and the Sonata, just, they look so much better. And I know the looks are a bit polarizing, but I feel like personally, I love the bold exterior. I love that light bar in the back. I love the turn signals. It looks so different from anything else you see on the road, and it really attracts a lot of attention. I think that overall this is probably one of the most attractive sedans in this segment. Really, the cool thing about this car, in my opinion, is that it's hard to find things that are wrong with this car. I mean, I've been driving it for a few days, and just overall, I just can't find anything wrong with the car. The tech is everything you could ever need, right? Literally every single available feature that I love. Adaptive cruise control, blind spot view monitors, surround view camera, heads-up display, right? All the coolest tech, ventilated and heated seats. The top trim is really, really worth getting, I think. For $35,000, you get all of this. You have ample legroom in the back, and you want a family mid-size sedan. I just really feel like this is hard to beat. Fuel economy is excellent in this car as well, right? 31 combined miles per gallon is really, really great. I think the one thing I can think to fault this car with is that there's no all-wheel drive option. I think that's really going to deter people to something like the K5, which does have an all-wheel drive option. So, you know, if you live somewhere where you don't need all-wheel drive or you don't care about it, then I definitely think this is the option for you. So there's my review of the 2022 Hyundai Sonata. I really enjoyed driving this for the last few days. If you want to check out my other videos, click up here, and please subscribe down here. Leave me a comment, you know, how do you like this car, any other cars you want me to review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.